Story 2, Unseen, Chapter 1, Mind Heist. The silence of the night was shattered. A primal scream tore through the smothering darkness, dragging Mark from the murky depths of a nightmare he couldn't quite grasp, yet whose stone-cold fronds still clutched at his skin. He shot upright, gasping for breath as if he'd just surfaced from a plunge into frigid water. A luster of cold sweat covered his skin. Each drop was a terror that still held him captive. Mark sat there, feverish. He was a trembling silhouette against the dim moonlight filtering through the window, letting the clammy humidity dribble down his temples. The brief images of his dream remained frustratingly out of reach, lost in the muddled aftermath of the sudden awakening. His hand instinctively went to his forehead, fingers raking back through soggy hair in an attempt to grasp the fading fragments.
What in God's name was that all about?
The whispered question drooped hefty in the stillness of the room, unanswered and worrying. Pushing back the clingy offcuts of sleep, Mark swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood, the cool wood of the floor an unambiguous divergence to his fevered skin. He moved towards the familiar bulk of his cabinet, his hand finding the soft loop of the face towel hanging precisely at the right corner. It was a small comfort in the lingering unease. As he blotted the wetness from his face and neck, his gaze drifted back to the unkempt state of his bed, then flickered to the luminous dial of the wall clock.
Are you kidding me?
Mark muttered, the digital numbers mocking him. 2 a.m., still the dead heart of the night. He left the heavy silence of his room and walked to the kitchen. All he craved was the numbing embrace of a cold beer. He hoped that it might somehow coax sleep back to his weary eyelids. He was relieved as he opened the refrigerator door and spotted the solitary can snuggled amongst the forgotten leftovers. The satisfying hiss of the tab being pulled echoed in the quiet kitchen. Mark tilted the can and took a long, slow sip.
Ah, that's good.
He breathed, the icy liquid a welcome shock against his dry gullet. It was crisp and carried a familiar bitterness that usually soothed his tatty nerves. He scanned the room, seeking a place to settle and let the beer work its magic. As he reached the living room, he immediately saw the couch, its worn cushions promising a semblance of coziness. As Mark moved towards the television, intending to flick it on for some tedious distraction, his own reflection caught his eye in the darkened screen, sitting on the sofa, looking at him. His heart banged against his ribs with such strength that he felt its ferocious thump resonate in his ears. Mark froze in fright, every muscle in his body locking in disbelief. Slowly, cautiously, he turned his head towards the couch, the canned beer clutched tightly in his hand. But the space where he had just seen his mirrored image was empty, utterly, terrifyingly empty.
What the hell is happening?
The whispered words were barely audible, lost in the sudden, deafening roar as the television sprang to life, its volume blaring an incoherent dissonance of noise and static. The unexpected assault on his senses sent Mark stumbling backward, the half-empty can beer slipping from his grasp and clattering onto the floor, its contents spreading across the worn carpet. He landed heavily on his back, scrambling away from the malevolent glow of the screen, dragging himself across the floor. Then, cutting through the electronic noise, he heard it. His name, clear, distinct, undeniably his. It was a voice disturbingly outlandish, emanating from the flickering screen. Mark. Driven by a morbid curiosity that outdid his fear, Mark crawled back towards the television, his eyes fixed on its vivacious light as it continued to call his name, each utterance sending a fresh upsurge of chills through him. As he reached the front of the set, the screen abruptly went black, plummeting the room back into near darkness. A frightening realization dawned upon him. The television wasn't even plugged in. His gaze drifted back to the blank screen, and there it was again, his reflection on the couch, But this time, the image was horrifyingly still, the eyes vacant, hollow, and lifeless. Mark stared, his own eyes widening in disbelief and emerging terror. Then, with a sudden shudder, the screen flickered back to life, a news report already in progress. Confusion and burgeoning fear constricted in his chest as he searched for the off button. Yet, the broadcast, an unwelcome intrusion, persisted. The anchor's voice, somber and resonant, announced the mysterious disappearance of 8 hikers on the rugged terrain of Mount Apo. But before the narrative could unfold, the image dissolved into a blizzard of static, a high-pitched whine assaulting his ears. And then, he heard it again. Mark. At that instant, Mark gasped, his eyes snapping open to the familiar touch of his own bedsheets.
It was just a dream?
The sigh that escaped from him was thick with relief, the lingering fear slowly ebbing like a receding tide. He ran a hand over his sweaty forehead, his fingers once again pushing his hair back from his face, a gesture that usually brought comfort. His gaze shifted to the clock on the wall.
What the fuck?
The digital numbers glowed with an impossible familiarity. The time was exactly the same as it had been in his dream. A doubt wound its way back into his consciousness. To dispel the disturbing feeling, a dream within a dream, to ground himself in reality, Mark pinched the skin on his forearm, hard.
Ah, god damn it.
The sharp sting was undeniably real. Mark lay back down, the lasting reverberation of the TV screen still fizzy in the silence. Reaching for his phone on the nightstand, he flicked through the messaging app and typed a quick message to Grace, his girlfriend, recounting the bizarre and terrifying dream. He wasn't expecting a reply at this late hour, but a flake of hope remained that if he were still trapped in some nightmarish loop, she might somehow receive and read it by the time she awoke. If you liked our short story, please hit the like button. If you want more of our original short stories, subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Facebook. That's it for now, fellow night owls. Until next time, good night, sleep tight, keep the mirror out of your sight.